They thought she was guilty. They buried her waist deep in the earth, rained stones upon her until her body was broken. They dumped her in the evil forest for the wild dogs to feed on her, but they were wrong. Now, the wind carries her name, the earth remembers her pain, and one by one, those who took part in her death will answer to her. This is the story of Adama. A long time ago, when the earth still trembled at the voice of the gods, there lived a woman named Adama. She was the daughter of Umuaka, the late village hunter, and the wife of Obina, a prison guard feared for his cruel temper. Life had not been kind to Ada. Her mother had long joined the ancestors, and her father's grave was still fresh in the red earth as he had passed just recently. Her husband, Obina, who once cared for her, suddenly changed the day he laid his eyes on Ngozi, the young daughter of Kalu. It was as if Ngozi had bewitched him. When Obina asked for her hand, Kalu's voice came like a cutlass.
Over my dead body will my daughter be a second wife. If you truly want her, get rid of your first wife.
Those words became Obina's poison. From that day, he became a raging storm, spat curses at her, starved her of peace. But in all, Adama did not leave the marriage. Not because she enjoyed Obina's maltreatment, but because she had nowhere to run. Her aunt Ebele, seeing her misery, begged her to come stay in her hut until Obina's brain resets. Adama agreed, but she knew she could not depend on her for everything, so she began working for Okafor, the fisherman, selling fish, mending nets, and saving every cowrie to one day return Obina's bride price and cut the cord binding her to him. But Obina, blinded by desire for Ngozi, saw Adama's visit to Okafor as the perfect snare. He ran to the elders, panting like a hunter bringing news of prey.
My wife has been lying with Okafor,
he cried. In the land of Umuaka, adultery by a woman was an abomination, one that the gods themselves were believed to punish if the people did not act fast. The summons came swiftly. Okafor, the fisherman, stood before the king of Umuaka and the council of elders, sweat clinging to his brow.
Okafor,
the king's voice rumbled.
Why did you lie with Adama, knowing fully well that she is still the wife of Obina?
Okafor's head shook violently.
My king, my elders, that woman is a witch. She seduced me. She used a spell on me, and I couldn't help myself.
Gasps rippled through the crowd. None knew that behind this performance, Obina had cornered Okafor days before, promising to frame his only son Kalu and have him thrown into prison if he did not dance to his tune. Fear had tied Okafor's tongue to the lie. The king's face hardened.
She must be stoned to death so that others will learn. Gods, fetch her!
A murmur swept through the palace. No trial, no questioning, no chance to defend herself. Even Obina's chest tightened. He had thought she would be banished. He hadn't expected this. This punishment was too harsh. Panic gripped him as the guards marched away. He ran after them, hoping to warn Adama before it was too late. But he didn't make it. Adama was at the riverside selling smoked fish when they came. Like hunting dogs, they swarmed her, their hands rough on her arms, her basket spilling into the mud. She screamed, "What have I done?" she cried, twisting in their grip, but no one answered. She was dragged through the village, past the curious, the silent, the indifferent. In the village square, the emergency drum sounded. The men dug a pit while the children gathered stones. Ebele fought through the crowd, tears on her cheeks, but they shoved her back. Adama was forced into the pit, burying her waist deep. One elder stepped forward and read aloud her offense to the hearing of all gathered. "That is not true," Adama screamed, tears streaking her face. "Okafor, tell them the truth." But Okafor's gaze fell to the ground. "Obina, you know me. Tell them." But Obina's eyes slid away. Her first son, Dike, could not meet her stare. Ebele fought to reach her, screaming, but the woman pulled her back so she would not witness the end. The chief elder's voice was sharp with contempt.
"A woman who can sleep with another man besides her husband is capable of murder. You may now cast your judgment."
The first stone came from Obina's trembling hand, the second from Okafor, the third from her own son Dike. Then the men of Umuaka surged forward, their arms rising and falling without mercy, stones slamming into flesh and bones. Adama screamed, but no one cared. Each strike stole her strength until the world blurred, and then darkness. When it was over, the guards checked her body, lifeless. Without rites, without mourning, they carried her to the evil forest. There, in a shallow earth beneath twisted trees, they buried her. The wind carried her last breath into the darkness, and something ancient heard it. As night fell over Umuaka, the moon hid behind the thick clouds, and the air felt thick as though the land itself held its breath. Deep in the evil forest where Adama's body was buried, a strange wind rose. The trees groaned and all screeched. Then silence. From beneath the shallow earth, the soil stirred. The wind carried a faint, broken voice. Ebele woke up with a jolt, sweat running down her face. She had dreamt of Adama standing at the edge of the forest, her clothes torn and covered in blood, her eyes dark and unblinking. The next morning, hunters spoke of footprints pressed deep into the soil at the entrance of the forest. By the third night after Adama's death, the whispers of the forest no longer floated softly. They rolled through the wind like a curse and headed towards Ubaka's house, the very man who had stood at village square and spat out her sentence. Ubaka jolted up in his hut. He could feel it, eyes watching him from the dark. Grabbing his lantern, he stepped outside, but the night was still. Only the wind moved, and it seemed to be calling his name. Just as he was about to return to his hut, a strange wind rose without warning, swirling around him like an unseen hand. It grew stronger, knocking dust and leaves into his eyes. Then, with a force that made his knees buckle, the wind swept him off his feet. Ubaka screamed for help, but the village was silent. No one heard. No one came. The wind carried him a short distance and then slammed him hard into the ground. Ubaka never rose again. By morning, the villagers found his lifeless body lying in his compound. His head was crushed, his skull shattered as though 100 stones had struck him at once. Small stones littered the ground, and the single deep footprint faced the direction of the evil forest. The next night, the whispers came again, rolling through the wind like the growl of an unseen beast. At dawn, Mazi Okafor paddled his canoe into the wide belly of the river. His net was heavy with fish, the morning mist curling low over the water. He thought he was alone, not until the river shifted. From the depths, a monstrous fish emerged. Enormous, its back breaking the surface like a moving hill. Its eyes glowed with something that was not of this world. Okafor froze, his heart pounding. Then he screamed, calling to the other fishermen in the distance. But before they could do anything, the water erupted. The creature lunged, its gaping mouth swallowing Okafor whole. The river calmed instantly, as though nothing had happened. Only the canoe drifted, empty, rocking gently on the ripples. The other fishermen stared, too afraid to go near. By midday, the news had reached the village, and though no one spoke it aloud, the fear in their eyes said it all. Another man had been claimed. The next day, the wall of Umuaka buzzed with unease. Women fetched water from the stream in horrid silence. Men gathered in clusters, speaking in low voices, their eyes darting toward the evil forest. In the palace, the council of elders sat in a circle. No one spoke at first. The air was thick with something heavier than smoke. Finally, one of the elders broke the silence.
2 men are dead, and both threw stones at her.
The room shifted uncomfortably. Then, Elder Nwoke muttered,
Don't tell me this is her spirits doing all this.
Some scoffed, but others avoided his eyes. The king tapped his staff against the floor.
Enough! We will not feed the villagers with tales of spirits. This has nothing to do with that adulterous woman.
But outside the palace, the fear was already spreading. Children whispered the stories. Women crossed themselves when the wind blew from the forest. Even hunters refused to pass too close to the forest where Adama had been buried. And then, as the moon climbed higher, the whisper came again, louder than before. The sound called through the village, slithering into every ear, making even the bravest shiver. That night, the palace was silent, the guards dozing at their posts. Then, without warning, a smoky ghost-like form slipped through the gates. It glided past the guards unseen, crawling through the corridors until it reached the king's chambers. Inside, the king jolted awake, his heart racing. The air was thick, cold. Then he heard it, a whisper, low and chilling, calling through the darkness. His eyes darted around the room, searching for the source. That was when it happened. A strange force gripped him, invisible yet powerful, lifting the king from his bed. His body hung in the air like a leaf in the wind, spinning slowly at first, then faster. The king tried to scream, but his voice felt swallowed by the night. And then he saw her, Adama's ghost standing at the corner, blood-stained, hollow eyes burning with vengeance. She did not speak, she only stared, her presence heavier than any curse. The force hauled him, then threw him across the room with a bone-cracking thud. Darkness swallowed him before he could draw another breath. By morning, the queen found the king sprawled lifeless on the floor, his eyes wide open in terror. The king's death cracked Umuaka open like a gourd. From the market square to the riverside, voices whispered in fear. Did you hear? The king is dead, just like Mazi Obaka and Mazi Okafo. They say it is the Adama spirit too. She's calling them one by one. The story flew like restless birds circling the same truth. Everyone who had a hand in Adama's death was marked. In the corner of his hut, Obina sat motionless, sweat dripping down his face. The once fearless Obina now trembled at every sound. He knew sooner or later he would be called. He had to do something before death found him. By the fourth day, the elders gathered in the council hut. The air was heavy, their voices low.
We cannot keep burying our men.
Elder Woki said,
This is no ordinary spirit. This is vengeance.
Another muttered. Then the oldest spoke, his voice heavy with dread.
There is only one person who can stand between the living and the dead. Ugonwanyi, the great chief priestess.
And so, the elders made a decision. At sunrise the next day, the elders set out for Ugonwanyi's shrine in Nri Forest, carrying wine, kola, and a goat for sacrifice. The path was long and quiet. The only sound, the crunch of feet on dry leaves, and the feeling that unseen eyes followed their every step. The shrine of Ugonwanyi stood like a shadow at the edge of the forest, its walls darkened by age, its doorway draped in charms that swayed with the wind. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burning herbs. The elders knelt, placing wine, kola, and the goat before her. Ugonwanyi, tall and regal in white, her eyes like deep rivers, studied them in silence before she spoke. You have come to beg for peace, but you have no peace to give. Her gaze swept over each man and then shifted uneasily. You killed that innocent woman, she said, her voice deep and certain. And until all the men who threw a stone at her join her in the land of the spirits, she will not rest. Mazi Bekwe frowned.
But she committed adultery.
Ugonwanyi's laughter was sharp and cold. That is what they made you believe. I see death on your heads, all of you. She will not rest. The men exchanged fearful glances. Finally, one elder's voice trembled.
What do we do?
Ugonwanyi's eyes darkened as the flames in her pot flared as she leaned forward, her tone dropping to a deadly whisper. The only way to stop this is to go to the evil forests, exhume Adama's body, and give her a befitting burial. The elders exchanged glances. It sounded easy, until Ugowanyi's voice cut through again, sharper than a whip. Not after Obina has confessed, and fast. Otherwise, you all will not live to see the next market day. The words struck like a spear. The elders thanked the priestess hastily and fled the shrine, their feet pounding the forest path back to Umuaka. When they reached the village and went straight to Obina's hut, it was empty. The door swung loosely in the wind. Obina was nowhere to be found. While the elders searched in vain, Obina had already crossed into a neighboring land to see Udele, a feared Dibia whose name carried both respect and dread. Inside the dim hut, the air thick with incense, Udele listened as Obina poured out his fear.
You must go and confess!
Udele said finally, his tone cold. Obina's eyes widened.
I can't. How will the people look at me? How will my own son see me?
His voice shook as he dropped to his knees.
Please, Udele, give me fortification. Anything. I beg you, Udele.
Udele stared at him for a long moment, then began to chant in a tongue older than the village itself. The firelight flickered, shadows dancing across the walls. Slowly, he reached into a clay pot beside him and drew out a leather necklace, strung with strange charms and animal teeth.
Wear this at all times.
Udele warned, his voice slow.
It will shield you from the evil that haunts you. But remove it, and you will meet her faster than you think.
Obina clutched the necklace tightly, thinking he had found salvation, not knowing that Adama's spirit was already nearer than the air he breathed. After leaving Udele's shrine, Obina fled to his mother's village, believing the evil would not follow him there, but he was wrong. In Umuaka, the deaths continued. One by one, the men who had thrown stones at Adama fell in their sleep at the river. Even in the marketplace, fear ruled the land. It didn't matter if you hid beneath the sea or fled to the clouds, the evil still found them. No one knew who would be next, and this made it even more terrifying. A few months later, Dike, Obina's son, was cutting wood behind his grandmother's hut when a snake slid from the bushes and struck him. The boy screamed and collapsed. Obina ran to him, shouting,
What happened? Dike, what happened?
In pain, Dike's hand shot up, grabbing Obina's necklace and yanking it off before going limp. Obina stayed by his side, desperately trying to save his son, unaware the charm was gone. By the time his mother returned with help, the boy was dead. Obina's cries tore through the village. He cried like never before. That night, Obina did not sleep. As he sat in the dark weeping, a whisper drifted into the hut. He looked around, nothing. Then his hand touched his bare neck. The necklace was gone. Before he could move, she appeared. Adama, her eyes dark, her dress torn, her presence colder than death. Go tell the people of Umuaka what you did to me, or you will wish for death, but will not see it. And then she vanished. Obina jolted awake. Was it a dream? He rose to his feet, but his head felt heavy. Stepping outside, he saw people scream and scatter at the sight of him. Confused, he went to a water pot by the side of the hut, and when he saw his reflection, he screamed. His head had swollen grotesquely, the hair on his head gone, leaving it shiny and bald. The curse had found him. By midday, Obina had made up his mind. The ghost's warning echoed in his head. If he did not speak, he would live wishing for death. His swollen bald head ached, but he began the journey to Umuaka. Word of his condition had already reached the village. Some said he was cursed. Others swore Adama had marked him for last. Children were warned not to look at him when he eventually comes, for fear their own heads would swell. The path home felt longer than ever. Every single rustle in the bush made Obina jump. More than once, he thought he heard footsteps behind him, but when he turned, the path was empty. The air grew colder the closer he came to the village. The moment Obina's feet touched the soil of Umuaka, the reaction was instant. Women screamed and dropped their calabashes. Men stumbled backwards. Even dogs tucked their tails and bolted, while chickens scattered into the air, flapping wildly. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Obina's legs gave way, weak and in pain. He collapsed in the middle of the village square. His labored breathing echoed in the silence that followed. When words reached the remaining elders, they exchanged uneasy glances. Without delay, the emergency drums were struck, deep, urgent beats rolling across the land, summoning every man, woman, and child to the square. One by one, they gathered, their eyes fixed on the broken man at the center, their whispers rising like the rustle of dry leaves. They had all come to hear what he had to say. The air was heavy, vibrating with fear. Elder Nwoke's voice cut through the murmurs.
Obina, speak! Tell the people why you have come.
Obina struggled to his knees, his breath uneven.
I have come to confess. I lied about Adama. She never committed adultery. I just wanted her gone.
A sharp gasp tore through the crowd. Ebele, Adama's aunt, broke down in tears, her voice shaking.
I always knew she was innocent, but none of you listened.
The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Without wasting time, the oldest among them gave the order.
Exhume her body at once.
Immediately, a group of men made their way to the evil forest where Adama's body had been cast away. The forest air was still. They dug into the earth until their shovels struck her body. With steady but uneasy hands, they lifted her remains and carried them back to Umuaka. Before sunset, the village gathered again, not for judgment, but for atonement. Adama was given a befitting burial, with songs of sorrow and offerings to appease her spirits. The earth closed over her grave as the people stood in silence, shame heavy in their hearts. But as the last spade of soil was laid, a cold wind swept through the crowd. Some said it was her acceptance, others feared it was only the beginning of more troubles. After Adama's burial, the elders turned to Obina. His confessional stripped away every lie, and the people saw him for what he truly was. Obina was banished from Umuaka with nothing, no land, no food, no family. Even Ngozi, the girl for whom he had destroyed his wife, met him at the village edge. Her face twisted with disgust. She spat at him. "Evil man," she said coldly. "You killed for me. I would rather die than be yours." Words of Obina's crime and curse spread quickly through neighboring villages. One after another, they closed their gates, refusing to give him shelter. Alone and unwanted, Obina wandered the forest, his grotesquely swollen bald head making him a figure of fear and mockery. Hunger gnawed at him. Nights were cold, days were long. At last, deep in the wild, beneath the shadow of an ancient tree, Obina's strength failed him. He died there, forgotten, unloved, and unmourned. And so, beneath the ancient tree, Obina's life ended, not by the hands of men, but by the curse he himself had planted. The people of Umuaka would never forget the days when the wind carried names and death walked among them. From that time on, no judgment was passed without proof, and no voice was silenced without being heard. Remember this: lies and injustice are seeds of death. They may grow slowly, but in the end, they choke the one who planted them. In all thy dealings, keep thy hands clean. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more interesting stories, please consider subscribing to this channel, not forgetting to turn on your post notification icon so that when a new video is being posted, you will be the first to be notified. Also, make sure to like and share this video with your family and friends. Till we meet again in my next video, remain blessed.